Most schools have rumors about a haunted bathroom or a strict principal, but my school had a secret so massive that it literally felt like a movie. It all started when I was a freshman. There was this one completely unmarked rusted steel door at the very end of the basement hallway that was locked with 3 separate padlocks. The teachers told us it was just an old boiler room, but nobody believed them. One day, a senior tried to peek through the keyhole, and the very next morning, his locker was completely cleaned out, and he was never seen at our school again. Of course, being the absolute genius that I am, I decided I was going to be the one to find out what was behind that door.
Now, obviously, I couldn't pull off a massive heist like this alone. I'm way too clumsy and I panic way too fast. I needed a team, so I recruited my 2 best friends. First was the Brain, a kid who could literally hack into the school's grading system just to change his attendance records. Second was the Lookout, who was basically just a guy we bribed with bags of chips to stand by the stairs and cough loudly if a teacher walked by. Our plan was simple. Wait until the final period during the Friday pep rally when the entire school was screaming in the gym, steal the master keys from the janitor's closet, and crack open that rusted steel door. What could possibly go wrong, right?
Friday finally arrived, and the entire school was packed inside the gymnasium, cheering, blasting music, and making enough noise to cover an explosion. The hallways were completely ghost towns. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a jackhammer. The Brain and I crept down to the janitor's office, while our Lookout took his position by the stairwell. We knew we only had exactly 40 minutes before the rally ended and the halls filled back up with students and strict teachers. If we got caught here, it wouldn't just be detention, it would be a one-way ticket to suspension. We reached the janitor's closet, and luckily, the door was slightly cracked open. The master key ring was hanging right on a metal hook next to a giant row of mops. My hand was shaking so badly, I almost dropped the entire ring, which would have made a massive echoing metal clang across the basement hallway. I grabbed them, threw them into my backpack, and gave a thumbs up to the Brain. Phase 1 was officially complete. We sprinted down the dark, flickering hallway toward the end of the basement where the forbidden steel door was waiting for us. Standing in front of the door felt totally different this time. It felt cold, dark, and honestly, a little bit evil. I took out the keys and tried the first padlock. Click! It opened. My hands were sweating. I tried the second padlock. Click! 2 down, 1 to go. Just as I put the key into the third lock, we heard a loud, violent cough echo from the top of the stairs. It was our Lookout. Someone was coming down to the basement, and they were walking fast. Panic instantly set in. We couldn't run back up the stairs because that's exactly where the footsteps were coming from. The third lock was still jammed shut. The Brain gripped my shoulder and pointed directly toward an old wooden storage locker against the wall. We threw ourselves inside it, pulling the door shut just as a shadow turned the corner. Peeking through the wooden slats, we saw the vice principal walking slowly down the hall, holding a flashlight and looking around suspiciously. I was literally holding my breath, praying my stomach wouldn't make a loud growling noise. The vice principal stopped right in front of our locker. He shined his flashlight directly at the forbidden door. He noticed that 2 of the padlocks were hanging wide open. He muttered something under his breath and reached for his walkie-talkie. If he called for backup, we were completely done for. But right at that exact second, a loud crash echoed from the far side of the cafeteria upstairs. A janitor had dropped a giant stack of cafeteria trays. The vice principal turned around and sprinted back up the stairs to check out the noise. We had survived by pure, unadulterated luck. We scrambled out of the locker. I shoved the final key into the third padlock and twisted it with all my strength. Snap! The lock opened. We pulled the heavy steel door back, expecting to see a secret government lab, a pile of stolen exams, or maybe something paranormal. But instead, the room was brightly lit with LED strips. There was a massive couch, a giant flat-screen television, a refrigerator packed with sodas, and 3 high-end gaming computers set up in a row. It wasn't a boiler room. It was a secret teacher lounge that they built using the school's budget. We walked into the room completely stunned. On the desk, there were competitive gaming trophies with the principal's name on them. The teachers weren't staying late to grade papers. They were staying late to run a secret esports club after hours. There were rows of snacks, gaming chairs, and a whiteboard with strategy layouts for competitive shooting games. We couldn't help but laugh out loud. The biggest mystery in the history of our school was literally just the staff dodging their families to play video games in the basement. Once the initial shock wore off, the brain and I couldn't resist stepping further into the room. We walked up to the main gaming rig, which was literally nicer than any setup I've ever seen in my life, and saw that the screen was still on. The principal was logged into a competitive shooter game, and his match history was insane! This man had been grinding ranked games for hours. But then the brain pointed at the monitor next to it. The vice principal had an open spreadsheet, but it wasn't for school grades. It was a completely detailed bracket for an underground teacher esports tournament, and they were playing for actual cash prizes. The math teacher was currently in first place, and the history teacher was on a 10-game losing streak. While the brain was checking out the tournament brackets, I decided to inspect the rest of the lounge. I walked over to the giant stainless steel refrigerator in the corner and pulled it open. Bro, it was like a paradise. It was completely stocked with custom energy drinks, giant boxes of leftover pizza from the expensive place downtown, and a whole shelf dedicated to gourmet ice cream. Keep in mind, our school cafeteria serves a soggy pizza that tastes like cardboard and cardboard-flavored milk. Meanwhile, the staff was down here living like literal kings on the school's budget. I grabbed a can of soda and a slice of cold pizza, because honestly, if I was risking suspension for this heist, I was at least getting a free lunch out of it. But the craziest part of the entire room was the giant whiteboard hanging on the back wall. At first, it looked like a standard classroom whiteboard filled with graphs and arrows, but when you actually read it, it was a complete tactical breakdown of the school's security cameras, the janitor's shift schedule, and the exact blind spots in the hallways. They didn't design this map to catch students skipping class. They designed it so they could sneak down to the basement during their lunch breaks without getting caught by the superintendent. They had literally mapped out the entire school like a stealth video game just so they could play video games.
As I was sitting there chewing on a slice of the principal's premium pizza, the brain suddenly gasped. He had clicked on the history teacher's open desktop profile and found a folder labeled Final Exams. Do not open. We both froze. Inside that folder were the exact answer keys for the upcoming midterm exams, the ones that half the school was currently failing. This was the holy grail of high school leverage. If we copied these answers, we could easily pass with perfect scores and become legends. But just as the brain reached into his pocket to pull out a flash drive to copy the files, a massive red light on the wall started spinning, and a loud, sharp text notification popped up on the principal's main monitor. The notification read, "Motion detected at basement hallway." My heart literally dropped into my stomach. The principal didn't just lock the door, he had a hidden security camera linked straight to his phone. We looked at the live feed on the screen, and our lookout was completely gone. He had obviously run away when he saw the principal heading back down. On the screen, we could see the principal and the vice principal walking side by side down the stairs. And this time, the principal had a massive ring of spare keys in his hand. They weren't just coming to check on a noise anymore. They were coming directly to open this exact door. We were trapped in a room with absolutely no windows and only one exit. Panic hit us like a truck. If they unlocked that door and found us standing inside their secret gaming lounge, drinking their sodas and looking at their tournament brackets, we wouldn't just be suspended, we would probably be expelled on the spot. The brain started slamming the power buttons on the PCs to turn the screens off while I frantically tried to wipe my pizza crumbs off the desk. We couldn't hide back in the wooden locker outside because the teachers were already in the hallway. That's when I looked up at the ceiling and saw it, a loose, rectangular metal tile leading directly into the school's old ventilation system. It was a literal ROBLOX obby in real life, and we had about 10 seconds to climb it. I didn't even think twice. I dragged one of the expensive gaming chairs over, jumped onto the armrest, and shoved the ceiling tile out of the way. The dark space inside smelled like dust and 50 years of old school insulation, but I didn't care. I grabbed the metal edge and hoisted myself up, scraping my elbows like crazy. As soon as I was in, I reached my arms down and pulled the brain up right behind me. He was moving way slower because he was trying not to drop his backpack with all our gear. We grabbed the ceiling tile and slid it back into place, completely cutting off the light just as we heard the heavy metal jingle of keys outside the door. Through the tiny cracks in the ceiling tiles, we could see the entire room perfectly. The heavy steel door swung open, and the principal stepped inside, his face completely red. He was breathing heavily, looking around the room like a hawk. He walked straight over to the desks and touched the back of his computer monitor. My stomach twisted into a knot. I realized we made a massive mistake.
Even though the screen was black, the back of the PC was still burning hot from being turned on. The principal narrowed his eyes, looked up toward the ceiling, and muttered, "Someone was just in here." We were literally lying flat on our stomachs on a thin metal beam right above his head, holding our breath so hard our lungs felt like they were gonna burst. Just when I thought the principal was going to grab a ladder and poke his head into our exact hiding spot, the vice principal pointed toward the corner of the room. A massive basement rat had crawled out from behind the sofa and was currently dragging a piece of our leftover pizza crust across the floor. The principal sighed, rubbed his temples, and blamed the hot computer on a system glitch, thinking the rat had just tripped the motion sensor. They turned around, locked up the room, and walked out to call exterminators. The second the door clicked shut, the brain and I let out the biggest sigh of relief in human history. But now we had a completely new problem. We were stuck inside a pitch-black labyrinth of school vents, and we had no idea how to get down. We crawled through those dusty vents for miles, completely lost in the dark. It was literally like playing a real-life ROBLOX escape map, just with way more spiders. Finally, we saw a beam of light ahead, pushed the grill open, and dropped right into the empty cafeteria just as the pep rally ended. We brushed off the dust, blended back in with the crowd, and got away completely clean with the ultimate high school cheat code. If you think this escape was legendary, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment with your own crazy school secrets and hit that subscribe button to help us hit our next huge milestone. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!